The piercing wail of the emergency siren jolted Karen out of her beauty sleep. She shot up in bed, her silk eye mask askew, as the power flickered and died, plunging her opulent townhouse into darkness. "Not again," she screeched, fumbling for her phone. The screen illuminated her enraged features as she scrolled through the neighborhood's group chat. Sure enough, the latest post announced a widespread blackout, with no estimated restoration time. Gritting her teeth, Karen flung off her covers and stormed downstairs, her designer robe billowing dramatically behind her. She yanked open the front door, intent on giving the power company a piece of her mind. But the sight that greeted her made her blood boil. Across the street, the old Perkins place glowed with the warm light of a generator. Karen's neighbor, Mr. Perkins, sat on his porch, an oxygen tube snaking from his nostrils. His wife, frail and hunched, waved weakly as she passed by the window. How dare he? Karen seethed, marching over in her designer slippers. This is an outrage. Why does he get to hog all the power when the rest of us are suffering? Mr. Perkins looked up, his brow furrowed in concern. "Oh, hello, Karen. I'm so sorry about the blackout. I hope it gets restored soon." "Save it," Karen snapped, cutting him off. "That generator is making an awful racket and keeping me awake. I demand you turn it off at once." The elderly man blinked in bewilderment. "But my wife relies on her oxygen machine. Without power, she won't be able to breathe." Karen waved a dismissive hand. "I'm sure she can tough it out for a few hours. I need my beauty sleep, and that infernal machine is ruining it." Mr. Perkins's face fell, and he glanced worriedly at his wife through the window. I can't do that, Karen. My wife's health is at stake." "Well, then I'm calling the police," Karen declared, pulling out her phone. "This is a clear violation of the noise ordinance. You have 5 minutes to shut that thing off, or you'll be facing hefty fines." The color drained from Mr. Perkins's face, and he clutched the armrests of his chair, his knuckles turning white. "Please, Karen, you don't understand. Without that generator, my wife cold." "Time's up," Karen interrupted, already hitting the call button. "Enjoy your night in jail, old man." As the line connected, Mr. Perkins's desperate pleas fell on deaf ears. Karen turned her back, a smug smile playing on her lips. She was about to teach that selfish neighbor a lesson he'd never forget. The dispatcher's voice crackled through the phone, and Karen wasted no time explaining the situation. "There's an illegal generator running in my neighborhood, and it's keeping me awake. I demand you send an officer immediately to shut it down." "Ma'am, I understand your concern, but a generator running during a blackout is not necessarily illegal," the dispatcher replied calmly. "Is there an immediate threat to public safety?" Karen scoffed, her grip tightening on the phone. "Of course there is. That generator is a noise violation, and is preventing me from getting my beauty sleep. I need my rest, and that old man is selfishly hogging all the power." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "I see. Well, ma'am, without a clear public safety issue, I'm afraid I can't dispatch an officer at this time. The power company is already working to restore electricity, and they should have the grid back up soon." "Soon?" Karen exclaimed, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "That's unacceptable. I demand you send someone right now to shut that generator off, or I'll have your job." The dispatcher sighed deeply. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't do that. If the generator is powering critical medical equipment, interfering with it could put someone's life at risk. I understand this is an inconvenience, but I have to prioritize public safety. Perhaps you could try getting some rest or finding another way to pass the time until the power returns." Karen's face twisted in fury as the dispatcher's words sank in. How dare they dismiss her concerns? She was Karen Wallace, the most influential woman in the neighborhood. Nobody ignored her demands. Gritting her teeth, Karen ended the call and whirled around, her eyes landing on Mr. Perkins, who was watching her with a mixture of fear and pity. "This isn't over, you old fool," she spat, advancing menacingly. "If the police won't shut that generator down, then I'll do it myself." Before Mr. Perkins could react, Karen was storming across the street, her slippers slapping against the pavement. She was going to teach that selfish neighbor a lesson, even if it meant taking matters into her own hands. The old generator sputtered and chugged as Karen approached, its engine rumbling like a growling beast. She could see Mr. Perkins hurrying after her, his frail form moving with surprising speed. "Karen, please," he called out, his voice laced with desperation. "You don't understand. My wife needs that oxygen. Without it, she cooled." "Save it," Karen snapped, cutting him off. "I don't care about your wife or your precious generator. This is my neighborhood, and I won't have you disturbing my beauty's sleep any longer." Reaching the generator, she began fumbling with the controls, her fingers clumsy in the darkness. Mr. Perkins hovered nearby, wringing his hands anxiously. "Karen, I'm begging you, don't turn it off. My wife's life depends on—" "Shut up," Karen shouted, slamming her hand against the metal casing. "I'm the one in charge here, and I say this generator is coming down." With a triumphant grin, she yanked the emergency shut-off lever, and the machine sputtered to a halt. Immediately, the Perkins porch was enveloped in darkness, save for the faint glow of the streetlights. A muffled cry echoed from the house, and Karen's smile widened. "There, now you can all suffer in the dark like the rest of us." Mr. Perkins stared at her, his face a mask of horror. "No, my wife." He turned and dashed back to the house, his slippered feet slapping against the pavement. Karen watched, a sense of smug satisfaction washing over her. She had shown that selfish old man who was boss. Now, maybe she could finally get some peace and quiet. But as she started to turn away, a sudden movement in the darkness caught her eye. Mr. Perkins was sprinting back towards her, a small oxygen tank clutched in his trembling hands. "You've killed her," he cried, his voice cracking with grief. "My wife, she can't breathe without that machine. What have you done?" Before Karen could react, Mr. Perkins was upon her, shoving the tank into her hands. "Turn it back on, please. I'm begging you. She's going to die." The desperate plea in his voice made Karen's blood run cold. She stared at the tank, her heart pounding in her ears. Had she really? Karen's fingers trembled as she clutched the small oxygen tank, the implications of her actions dawning on her. Had she really just condemned Mr. Perkins's wife to a potentially fatal fate? The old man's frantic pleas echoed in her ears, and she found herself paralyzed, unable to move. She had been so consumed by her own selfish desires that she hadn't even considered the consequences of her actions. "Please, Karen," Mr. Perkins begged, his eyes wild with desperation. "You have to turn it back on. My wife, she can't breathe without that machine. You have to help her." Shaking herself out of her stupor, Karen wheeled around and rushed back to the generator, Mr. Perkins hot on her heels. Her fingers fumbled with the controls, desperately trying to recall how she had shut it off. Come on," she muttered, her heart pounding in her chest. Finally, she found the lever and yanked it back into the on position. The generator roared to life, its engine thrumming with renewed vigor. Mr. Perkins let out a shaky sigh of relief, and without a moment's hesitation, he dashed back to the house. Karen could hear the faint sound of an oxygen machine whirring to life, and the tension in her shoulders began to ease. But as the adrenaline wore off, a wave of guilt crashed over her. She had nearly killed an innocent woman, all because of her own selfish need for beauty sleep. What had she done? Shuffling back to her own home, Karen's mind raced. She had always considered herself a pillar of the community, a woman of influence and power. But in her single-minded pursuit of her own comfort, she had completely disregarded the needs of others. Sinking down onto her couch, Karen buried her face in her hands, a lump forming in her throat. How could she have been so heartless? The thought of Mr. Perkins's wife struggling to breathe, all because of her actions, made her sick to her stomach. She had to make this right somehow. But as she pondered her next move, a sudden realization dawned on her. The power was still out, and the Perkins family was now solely reliant on that generator. What if it failed again? With a renewed sense of purpose, Karen stood up, her jaw set with determination. She wasn't going to let her selfish mistake cost someone their life. This time, she was going to do the right thing, consequences be damned. With renewed determination, Karen marched back across the street, her mind racing. The Perkins generator had to be kept running at all costs, but she couldn't rely on the unreliable power company to restore electricity anytime soon. As she approached the porch, she could hear the whirring of the oxygen machine, a steady rhythm that signaled Mrs. Perkins's fragile grip on life. Karen's heart clenched at the thought of the elderly woman struggling to breathe, all because of her own selfish actions. Steeling herself, Karen knocked on the front door, her fingers trembling slightly. After a moment, Mr. Perkins opened it, his eyes widening in surprise at the sight of his neighbor. "Karen," he said, his voice laced with a mixture of confusion and wariness. "What are you doing here?" Karen took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Mr. Perkins, I want to help. I realized how thoughtless and cruel I've been, and I can't sit by and let my actions put your wife's life at risk." The old man's expression softened, and he gestured for her to come in. "Please come in. I'm grateful for your change of heart, but I'm not sure what you can do." Leading her to the living room, Mr. Perkins gestured to his wife, who lay propped up on the couch, the oxygen machine beside her. Karen's throat tightened at the sight of the frail woman, her chest rising and falling with labored breaths. "The generator is the only thing keeping her alive right now," Mr. Perkins said, his voice heavy with worry. "But it's an old machine, and I'm not sure how long it will hold up." Karen nodded, her gaze fixed on Mrs. Perkins. "That's why I'm here. I want to help you keep it running, no matter what. I'll do whatever it takes." Mr. Perkins studied her for a moment, his eyes searching her face. Finally, he gave a small nod. "All right, Karen. I appreciate your offer, and I'm willing to accept your help, for my wife's sake." Relieved, Karen stepped forward, her determination hardening. "Tell me what I need to do. I won't let this generator fail, even if it means staying up all night to keep it running." As Mr. Perkins began outlining the generator's maintenance requirements, Karen felt a newfound sense of purpose. She had made a terrible mistake, but now she had a chance to make things right. This time, she would put the needs of others before her own. The hours ticked by as Karen and Mr. Perkins worked tirelessly to maintain the aging generator. Every few minutes, they would check on Mrs. Perkins, her labored breathing a constant reminder of the stakes involved. Karen had never been one for manual labor, but she threw herself into the task with a newfound determination. She helped refuel the generator, monitored the oil levels, and made sure the air filters were clean. Anything to keep the machine running and Mrs. Perkins breathing. As the night wore on, Karen's hands became calloused, and her designer slippers were caked in grime. But she didn't care. All that mattered was ensuring the Perkins family's survival. Every time the generator sputtered or threatened to cut out, Karen's heart would leap into her throat. She would spring into action, tinkering with the controls or coaxing the machine back to life. The fear of letting Mrs. Perkins down kept her vigilant and focused. Mr. Perkins, for his part, seemed both surprised and grateful for Karen's unwavering dedication. He would offer her breaks, insisting that she rest, but Karen would wave him off. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, not when a life hung in the balance. As the first hints of dawn began to creep over the horizon, the generator let out a particularly ominous cough. Karen's eyes widened, and she quickly checked the fuel gauge. It was nearly empty. "Mr. Perkins," she called out, her voice tinged with urgency. "We need to refuel, quickly." The old man emerged from the house, his face etched with worry. "I'm on it," he said, hurrying to the garage to retrieve a can of gasoline. Karen watched the generator anxiously, her hands clenched into fists. If it failed now, after all their efforts, Mrs. Perkins wouldn't survive. She couldn't let that happen. As Mr. Perkins returned with the fuel, Karen sprang into action, carefully replenishing the tank. The generator sputtered and groaned, but eventually it roared back to life, the familiar hum a welcome sound. Karen let out a shaky breath, her shoulders sagging with relief. They had done it. They had kept the machine running through the night. But as she glanced towards the house, she knew their work was far from over. With a renewed sense of purpose, Karen turned to Mr. Perkins, her expression resolute. "We can't let this happen again. We need to find a more reliable way to power your wife's oxygen machine. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure she stays safe." Mr. Perkins stared at her, his eyes brimming with gratitude. "Karen, I don't know what to say. You've been a godsend tonight." Karen offered him a small smile, her heart still pounding. "Just promise me you'll let me help, no matter what it takes." The old man nodded, his own determination shining through. "Of course. Thank you, Karen, for everything." As the sun began to rise, Karen knew that this was just the beginning. She had a long road ahead of her, but she was determined to make amends and ensure the Perkins family's safety, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, Karen was a woman on a mission. She had made a terrible mistake, and she was determined to make it right, no matter the cost. Her first step was to reach out to the power company, demanding that they prioritize restoring electricity to the Perkins neighborhood. She pulled every string she could, using her influence and connections to pressure the utility providers. The company, initially wary of her aggressive tactics, eventually relented when they realized the gravity of the situation. Mrs. Perkins's life hung in the balance, and they couldn't afford to drag their feet. Within a week, the Perkins household was reconnected to the grid, but Karen wasn't satisfied. She knew that the aging generator was still a precarious lifeline, and she needed to find a more reliable solution. Diving headfirst into research, Karen began exploring alternative energy options. She consulted with experts, pored over technical manuals, and even reached out to local contractors and installers. Her determination knew no bounds as she sought to protect the Perkins family. Finally, after countless hours of work, Karen presented Mr. Perkins with a plan. A state-of-the-art, whole-home backup generator that would provide reliable power for Mrs. Perkins's oxygen machine even during extended blackouts. The cost was staggering, but Karen refused to let that be a barrier. She tapped into her substantial savings and negotiated with the installation company, pulling every string she could to secure the best possible deal. When the new generator was finally up and running, Mrs. Perkins's face lit up with relief and gratitude. She no longer had to worry about the fragility of the old machine, and the Perkins family could rest easy, knowing their loved one was safe. As Mr. Perkins embraced Karen, tears streaming down his face, she felt a profound sense of redemption. She had made a terrible mistake, but through her actions, she had not only made amends, but had also forged a strong bond with her once estranged neighbor. "Thank you, Karen," Mr. Perkins said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given us the greatest gift of all, the peace of mind to know that my wife will be taken care of, no matter what." Karen smiled, her own eyes glistening with tears. "It's the least I could do. I'm just grateful I was able to make things right." As the Perkins family settled into their new normal, Karen knew that her journey of redemption was far from over. But in that moment, she felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that she had never experienced before. She had learned a valuable lesson, and she was determined to carry that with her, forever changing the way she viewed the world and her place in it. In the weeks that followed, Karen's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. Gone was the self-absorbed, entitled woman who had once terrorized her neighbors. In her place was a compassionate, thoughtful individual driven by a newfound sense of purpose. The change didn't go unnoticed by the rest of the community. Whispers and murmurs spread through the neighborhood as people marveled at Karen's sudden shift in behavior. Some were skeptical, convinced that it was merely a temporary facade, but others saw the genuine remorse and determination in her eyes. Karen, for her part, embraced her newfound role as a steward of the community. She became a regular volunteer at the local food bank, donating both time and resources to those in need. She also spearheaded a neighborhood watch program, working tirelessly to improve safety and security for all her fellow residents. But her crowning achievement was her unwavering dedication to the Perkins family. She checked in on them regularly, ensuring that the backup generator was running smoothly and that Mrs. Perkins's health was stable. Whenever a storm threatened to knock out the power, Karen would be there, ready to step in and keep the machine running. The bond between Karen and the Perkins family only grew stronger with each passing day. Mr. Perkins, once wary of his neighbor's entitled behavior, now saw her as a trusted friend and confidant. Mrs. Perkins, her health steadily improving, would greet Karen with a warm smile and a heartfelt thank you. One day, as Karen was making her routine visit, Mr. Perkins pulled her aside, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "You know, Karen, we've been talking about it, and we want to do something special for you," he said, a grin spreading across his face. Karen's brow furrowed in confusion. "Special? Whatever for?" Mr. Perkins chuckled. "Well, you've become an integral part of our family, and we want to show our appreciation. So, we decided to nominate you for the Neighborhood Hero Award." Karen's eyes widened in surprise, and she felt a surge of emotion welling up inside her. The Neighborhood Hero Award? But I don't deserve that. I'm the one who. Nonsense. Mr. Perkins interrupted, placing a weathered hand on her arm. "You've done more for us than anyone else in this community. You've given us a second chance at life, and for that, we'll be forever grateful." As the news spread through the neighborhood, Karen found herself at the center of a groundswell of support and admiration. The once reviled Karen had become a beloved figure, a symbol of redemption and the power of compassion. At the award ceremony, as Karen stood before her peers, accepting the honor with tears in her eyes, she knew that her journey had come full circle. She had learned a valuable lesson, one that would shape the rest of her life, that true fulfillment comes not from selfishness, but from empathy, kindness, and a willingness to put the needs of others before her own. And as she looked out at the sea of smiling faces, Karen knew that this was just the beginning. She was ready to continue her newfound path, to make a lasting impact on her community and the world around her.